Welcome to another segment of our Article 5 primer, How Are Delegates to an Article 5 Convention Selected? I'm Vickie Deppe, and I'm the editor of the State Legislators' Article 5 Caucus newsletter. We'll answer this question briefly here, but we'll be covering this topic in much more detail at Academy 3.0 in Denver on July 31st, 2022. You'll find a link to register or watch the recording in the comments. When it comes to choosing delegates, states are sovereign. What does that mean? It means that each state legislature and no one else determines how their delegates are selected, how many of them there are, what their qualifications should be, and what they can and can't do at the convention. Let's examine each of these a little more closely. First, how are delegates selected? The legislature decides whether the state will hold a special election to choose its delegates or if they will be appointed. If they'll be appointed, the legislature will decide how that happens. Will they be appointed by leadership? Will it be handled by an ad hoc committee? These are questions that each state decides for itself. The size of the delegation can be however many or however few delegates the state wants to send, but it's important to note that all votes at the convention will be taken on a one state, one vote basis. We'll talk about that more in the next slide. Qualifications include both qualifiers and disqualifiers. Some states, for example, preclude federal office holders and employees from being a part of their delegation. Others require that the members of their delegation be a sitting legislator. Each state writes its own delegate instructions and procedures for enforcing them. Over a dozen states have delegate selection and oversight plans in place, and all provide for the recall of any member of their delegation that violates the instructions they've been given. Some impose criminal penalties as well. We'll be covering this in a lot more detail at Academy 3.0 on July 31st, 2022. There's a link to get more information in the comments, or if you've missed it, to watch the recording online. At an Article 5 convention, the states are co-equal. What does that mean? That's another way of saying that anytime there's a vote taken at the convention, it's done on a one state, one vote basis. If you're from a populous state, you might be thinking, hey, if we have more people, we should get more votes. But it's helpful to think of these meetings as more analogous to the United Nations than the House of Representatives. This is how these sorts of gatherings have always been structured throughout American history. Why is that? I'd like to offer the Colorado River Compact as an example of why this principle is important. 7 western states are party to the compact: Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and California. California's population is over 50% greater than the other 6 states combined, and it has almost 4 times the combined population of Arizona and Nevada, the 2 states with which it shares a basin. This example helps illustrate how very populous states could easily steamroller many of the less densely populated neighbors if it weren't for the one state, one vote principle. It's also worthwhile to note that we rely on some of our least populated states for important commodities like food and energy. Those delegates are going to be in the best position to assess impacts on these critical sectors, so it's important that they're heard, and the one state, one vote principle ensures that they are. A third reason one state, one vote is important is because these amendments are going to be ratified on a state-by-state basis, so one state, one vote will provide a much better indicator of an amendment's prospects for ratification than an apportionment formula. When it comes to delegate selection and oversight, the most important thing to know is that state legislators are in the driver's seat.